Okay, so I'm standing outside the Shard and I'm not gonna lie, I'm very, very excited because not only have I never had the pleasure of making it to the top of one of the world's tallest buildings, I've also got Samsung's Galaxy S4 Zoom. Now it's unlike any smartphone we've seen before, which kind of leaves you wondering, is it a smartphone or is it a camera? Well, the truth is it sits somewhere in between. But one thing's certain, there's a huge, huge emphasis on its photography skills. But before we head up there, let's see what it's like on ground level. Smartphone cameras have improved dramatically over the years, but this is the most extreme case of smartphone conversion yet, essentially fusing a Galaxy S4 Mini with a compact camera. But its design is so camera heavy, it feels more like a dedicated shooter than a phone. Conceptually, that's brilliant for snapping shots a cut above standard smartphones and then sharing them on the go. But it's equally comedic, like when you're awkwardly holding the zoom to your face for a phone call. People will stare, you have been warned. And while it looks good, the Zoom's shiny plastic white exterior is slippery smooth despite the protruding grip. Its physical lens gets in the way too, but can become a natural rest for the fingers. However, those complaints become irrelevant when using the S4 Zoom as a camera, and its combo of 10 times zoom, a 16 megapixel sensor, xenon flash and optical image stabilization means it's a step beyond the typical smartphone. Cue the Shard. Once accessed from the lock screen or app, photos can be taken without much delay using the dedicated shutter button, while being able to twist the zoom ring gives it a compact cam feel. Photo quality is decent by most phone standards, and while it definitely outperforms any other smartphone in the zoom department and takes impressive snaps, photos aren't that superior compared to photos from the S4 or Sony Xperia Z. But optical zoom is much better for closing in on your subject without destroying detail, and in most cases, close-ups offer a respectable amount of sharpness, but this is not the same for all photos. Despite looking great on screen, at full screen we found detail wasn't always particularly sharp, with some photos suffering from slight fuzziness, blur and noise. And when using auto, the camera can slightly overexpose, resulting in pictures looking washed out and a bit lackluster. This can be difficult to gauge on the Super AMOLED screen when outside in brighter light, but despite this, we still manage to get some natural yet vibrant and rich colours from our photos. Just remember, it doesn't always get those exposure levels right, but this can easily be corrected using expert mode, which lets you manually tinker with settings such as white balance, shutter speed, exposure compensation and ISO, which can be adjusted up to 3200. On a more positive note, it shoots brilliant 1080p video with the ability to use the full length of the zoom mid-shoot. The optical image stabilization is excellent, and focus tends to be reasonably swift when tapping on that display. Samsung has also introduced special functionalities to the zoom ring, such as quick launch for speedy access to multiple camera modes and in-call photo share for sending picture messages to the person on the other end of the call. Smart mode gives you access to 25 different scene modes such as continuous shot, beauty mode and panorama. My mode delivers quick access to your 5 favourite or most used camera settings. There's the usual assortment of filters plus Smart Mode Suggest that will pull up shooting suggestions based on your surroundings. Photo Suggest has also been introduced, pulling up snaps that have been taken by other people at nearby locations, as well as a couple of camera-specific applications. The Story Album for organising your photos, and Paper Artist for injecting your snaps with a load of cool special effects. We quite like the way it provides weather, dates, time and location info for your pictures as well. And with 8 GB of storage, you're going to need that micro SD card slot. Now with all that, it's easy to forget the S4 Zoom is actually a smartphone. It's running Android Jelly Bean overlaid with Samsung's TouchWiz UI, with functions largely the same as other S4 models, although it doesn't get S-Health or the gesture wizardry. The 4.3-inch touchscreen is bright and responsive, but at 540 by 960 pixels, its Super AMOLED display is a tad disappointing, especially considering its focus on imaging. And while text looks sharp and black's inky, it just can't compete with current flagships. The S4 Zoom has plenty of power for everyday essentials with its 1.5 GHz dual-core processor, but it's pretty slow by today's quad-core standards, and a real shame considering editing high-res images can be quite demanding. We discovered the Zoom became quite buggy after a heavy photo session too. And finally, battery life will deliver mixed results depending on usage. We used the Zoom to shoot around 150 shots for roughly 4 hours, alongside additional phone use before it needed a recharge, while using it primarily as a phone will get you between 7 to 9 hours of use. So the Galaxy S4 Zoom is the only phone to rock these kind of camera-heavy specs, which is a huge bonus. But as a phone, it's let down by its bog-standard performance and low-res screen. The bonus of having a handset like this is using apps, snapping great photos and sharing on the go, but there's no getting over its fat, awkward design as a phone. It targets dedicated shutterbugs who care more about a top-notch camera than having a cutting-edge smartphone. So if you're not completely obsessed with zooming, you should probably look elsewhere.